What is up, everyone? I'm back here with another video. Today we're going to be doing a updated Series 12 tier list. I'm going to be ranking not only the restricteds, but every single follow-up Pokemon as well. Competitively relevant Pokemon as well. So it's going to be a bit of a long list, but, I'll be covering everything, kind of going through it. Hopefully you guys enjoy this kind of video. Make sure to let me know what you guys would like to see next. And if you guys would like to support me beyond, YouTube, make sure to check out Patreon where you guys can support me and get access to all the different teams that I use. All the different teams that I use on stream and, tournaments, everything. That's the only place I post them. The only reason why I specifically reserve it for Patreon is because obviously if I'm putting public information on YouTube, it makes it easier to get scouted, and that's kind of the nature of being a competitor, That being said, thank you guys for support there. I incredibly appreciate it, and make sure to check out coaching if you guys would like to work on your skills as well. Anyways, without further ado, we're gonna get right into it. So first off is Mewtwo. Unfortunately, Mewtwo is going to cap off our certified F tier. The F tier is comprised of Pokemon who just are not that great, do not offer much in the metagame. Mewtwo is very outclassed, right? I mean, Calyrex is just faster than it, and it offers way better coverage. It offers better utility. A lot more it can do. Mewtwo as an attacker is outclassed. It just doesn't have the damage output it needs. It's just super lackluster, right? So, not really the best option there. We're going to kind of jump. I'm going to do one restricted, one regular, and then we'll kind of get through there. But yeah. So then, next up, Abomasnow. Abomasnow is also going to be in the F tier. It's just not worth it right now. Abomasnow is theoretically good when Kyogre's, and by theoretically, I mean, like, not really, but, like, people say, like, oh yeah, maybe you can counter Kyogre with it. Sun is everywhere, so that kind of already tells you what's gonna happen there. You know what I mean? It's not really gonna be that useful. It's just too weak, and it's weather, like, hail isn't the best weather anyways, and, like, in a format like this, there's no way it's gonna really have that viability, right? Next up, Lugia. So Lugia is going to go in the D tier for me. I do think it's one of the worst restricteds. However, it actually has a, like, reason to exist over Mewtwo. Like, you have Airstream, you have Setup. It's pretty bulky. The problem with Lugia is that it literally has, like, 90 special attack, I think, is the base stat, and that's really bad for, like, a legendary. Like, that's no damage output. You're sitting there. Granted, yes, you can Calm Mind and you have weakness policy, but, like, at higher levels of play, that just never works. You know what I mean? Because, like, people are going to play around it. So, just, not great in that regard. Then we have Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh's kind of a similar situation, except that because of its typing, I think it can be a lot of the C tier. C tier is, like, kind of, like, below average Mons, I'd say, that, like, don't really have too much use, but, like, are better than, like, D or F tiers, right? So basically, like, this is, like, never use it. You probably shouldn't use this. Maybe you can get away with, like, an excuse for using this, and then up here it's all, like, yeah, this is, like, good. Or, like, like, usable, or, like, solid, really good, and then, really, really good. So that's pretty much it for Ho-Oh. Now, a Selgor is like a fast support mon. This thing's gonna go in the, I'll probably put in the F tier. I can't really see it being viable in this format, unfortunately. Aegislash also is gonna go in the F tier. It's just too weak to all the ghost types. Dark types are everywhere. Double Dark is everywhere. And, like, even though theoretically it checks Zacian, it's just not one of those Pokemon. So Aerodactyl I'm gonna put in the D tier. Only because it's fast Tailwind, and it has a Nerve, and it can technically Snipe Zard with Stone Edge. However, it is a very linear Pokemon. It does get access to Wide Guard as well, which is potentially useful. But yeah. A Creamy G-Max, don't use that. The G-Max form is not worth using. However, the normal Creamy, I'm going to actually put in C tier. I feel like on the Palkia Calyrex teams, Creamy actually has a decent chance to be good. I'm not exactly sure the build you should use. However, I do think in general it's a kind of cool concept for the team. So I will leave that there. I think it's kind of a cool idea that maybe should be explored a bit more. I also got to make the, add a row below. I got to make the, lol. These are memes. I'll call it the meme tier. Meme tier. All right. And this, obviously, meme tier, you shouldn't use these, right? This is like the, I should not be using this at all, and it is a bad idea to do so, right? So for the meme tier, you know, we're just going to get out of the way. Zygarde Dog Form, Cosmog, Cosmoem, Normal Necrozma, Normal Zamazenta, Normal Zacian, Boneless Calyrex. Anything else that is in the meme tier before we continue? Why is Lileep here? That's like a very random inclusion. I'll put that there too. Yeah, that was like a very random inclusion out of the group. Anyways, okay. So that's pretty much it for our meme tier. We'll get to more if need be. So next up, the next Pokemon we're going to talk about. Now, Kyogre, man. Kyogre is one of the strongest Pokemon in the game. However, I think it is worse than it initially was in the metagame. So much so that I am going to take it out of S tier and I'm going to put in A tier. This does not mean that it is a bad Pokemon. Maybe I do want S tier. Alright, it's going to be low S tier. Okay? However, it is not the best of S tier anymore. I think it is arguably the worst of the S tier at this point. The one thing you're going to notice is Groudon is going to have a severe jump from our last tier list for the metagame. But we'll get to that eventually. Oh, I should also put this. I guess you could argue Origin Form is more of a meme. Anyways, we'll get to that. Normal Cherum is a meme as well. Next up, I just realized you guys can see all the music I'm listening to. How do I fix this? You guys are able to see all my song choices, which I guess is fine. Hopefully you guys, if you guys see any of the songs you like, feel free to, what's it called? Click on those. But then next up, well, normal Blastoise is F. Don't use that. But G-Max Blastoise, I think, is like in the B or the C tier. I'm going to put in the B tier. So G-Max Blastoise is a weird one, dude. It's like, it has some semblance of use, right? But you put it in certain situations and it's really bad. However, it is really good versus certain teams. Because of the Sun being really popular right now, Blastoise is like a little bit worse off. It does have a lot of use on like Calyrex teams though, which actually do kind of stomp Sun anyways, so it kind of makes sense. So I think a B tier is pretty fair placement for it. Amungus. Now Amungus is a really, really good Pokemon. Super, super good. I'm going to put in the A tier. The reason why I want in the A tier is because I feel like it's like arguably the best redirection in the format besides Indeedee. Like Indeedee's up there too. And, yeah, it has a lot of potential to just be on a lot of teams. And, like, it's really good on, like, the Palkia, Calyrex Ice teams right now. So, you know, it kind of has some good appearances there. I think that as well. Amungus, like, is great at enabling, like, a lot of partners in this format. Alright. Araquinid is going to be a high C or low B tier. I'm going to put it as a low B tier. The reason why is because Araquinid with, like, liquid, or what's it called? Like, not liquid armor. Water bubble, that's what it is. It's actually really, like, strong. The problem is that, in practice, it's not as great, you know? So, it kind of struggles in that regard. Maybe put it in C, because it hasn't really had any good success. We're going to put it in C. I feel like its strong water moves are something that definitely could be utilized at some point in the format. Normal Arcanine's like either low C or high D. I'm going to put low C because theoretically, right, like Arcanine does match up better against Zacian than Incineroar does. But then you factor in literally everything else that's wrong with it, and it's just like, okay, maybe I shouldn't use this thing, you know, so don't really see it being too viable. Shoutouts to Max D's VGC with his Butterfree team. We're going to probably put that in the D tier. I wouldn't necessarily recommend using this. Actually, maybe C. It had a decent, like, you know, had a decent showing at regionals. I think, wait, was it 5-3 or 6-2? Maybe it was 5-3. I can't remember, actually, if it was 5-3 or 6-2. I'm going to put it high D. Anyways, it is a faster sleep bot, but then you kind of factor in all the other issues it has, which is basically it is like really frail, which you could argue, okay, whatever, you can sash it, right? But then it's susceptible to fake out, you know, it's just not super great. So that's my thoughts on it. Let's see. Next up, Articuno. I don't think you're bad enough to... Actually, you're definitely bad enough to be in the F tier. Same with normal Articuno. These are just bad Pokemon. Like, you have no reason to use them. You know what I mean? Like, there's just better options. I guess maybe... Is this like a worthy F tier? Because I feel like this is worse than this. Like, I can't be putting Aerodactyl over this Articuno. Yeah, I mean, this is fine, I guess. But, like, yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, no, it's bad. It loses Zacian. Let's see. Azelf. This thing's F tier. Don't use this. Azumarill. Can maybe check Yveltal. Bad versus everything else. Rillaboom in the format. Charizard Sun Team. Okay, yeah, no, this is pretty bad. This goes F tier for sure, dude. I actually am reconsidering Butterfree. No, like, Butterfree actually has some use, right? So I guess, like, I can keep it. Bisharp. Alright, Bisharp is a weird one for me. I actually feel like this Mon has some inherent potential because of all of the, what's it called? The Calyrex ice teams with Palkia, and then, you know, you have Calyrex Shadow running around. I just can't figure out, like, what it would do. But I do think it's substantially better than these options. It also scoops the sun pretty hard, right? So, alright. Blaziken, don't use this. Blissey, same. We're gonna have a lot of F tiers. Braviary just used Thundurus. Now, Bronzong's an interesting one. Bronzong is actually a really decent TR setter, in my opinion, on certain teams, specifically more so with the Yveltal teams. I actually kind of like the idea of Bronzong being with Yveltal. Yveldon specifically really likes it because it helps with the Calyrex matchup. Calyrex Ice matchup, specifically. So it's kind of a cool option. Do I really see it being useful besides, like, maybe Yveltal teams? Not so sure. But it is kind of cool for, like, what it does. You know, it has Iron Defense and everything, so. Buzzwole, Max Airstream exists. Celesteela is an interesting one. Theoretically, right? Celesteela is actually really good at walling a lot of the Pokemon in the metagame. But then you think about it for more than 2 seconds and you kind of realize that, like, it's really passive. And if you are running it offensive, then you kind of lose some other benefits. However, I do think that it is inherently better than the other D tier mons. So I will put it in C. I think it's fair to put it above Arkanine, to be honest. I even want to lower Arkanine, maybe. I'm going to think about lowering Arkanine. Normal Centriscorch, don't use that. We want Gmax Centriscorch. I'd say it's like a D tier idea at best. Like, it can beat Zacian, right? But then you realize it takes like 60% from Behemoth. And the difference between this and Charizard actually, like, does a lot of damage. You know what I mean? And, like, Centriscorch doesn't really. And it's also, its secondary Gmax effect is worse than Charizard. And it doesn't get Airstream. Chandelure. Chandelure I'm going to put in the low C tier. The only reasoning why is because with Flash Fire and with its typing, it does wall Zacian. However, literally everything else kills it. And also, too, I have seen it work on, I think it was Crazy Mix's Zacian Groudon team early in the format where he used Chandelure and, like, Tailwind. And, like, so I get it. No, I'm sorry. I can't justify Chandelure. Also, I'm lowering Arkanine. I think I'm going to lower it even more. I'll put Arkanine over Chandelure, though. Chansey. Don't use Chansey. It's, like, really easy to get timered. I'm actually going to make a new tier called God on Showdown. Here, at a row below. Annoying AF on Showdown. And I'm literally just going to have Chansey, Shuckle, and Blissey in there. Alright, there you go. There you go. So literally, if you want to get stupid wins on Showdown, yeah, that's the one to use. Don't use normal Charizard. Now, Gmax Zard. Dude, this Pokemon is so good. It is actually such a cracked Sunmon. It's actually, like, so deserving of the A tier. I'd even consider putting it above Amungus if it... Because, like, it works with Groudon so well. And, like, the amount of pressure this thing exerts is ridiculous. Like, the secondary effect is so ridiculously strong and can exert so much pressure. So, like, I definitely think Charizard deserves the A tier spot for sure. It's, like, incredibly strong. With Sun, it can put on a lot of pressure. You have, like, a lot of tools to support it. It's just super good. Oh my god, we have so many Pokemon. Next up, Groudon. Groudon is a really, really, really good option as a restricted now. I'm actually going to put it in the S tier. I think it is better than Kyogre at this moment because of the composition that's been found with it. And I think that it also has potential to enable other restricteds really well, more so than Kyogre. I feel like when you use Kyogre, you're literally limited to using only Zacian or maybe Calyrex Shadow. That's literally it. So Groudon is just incredibly strong. And the way it's able to just enable these two strong sun users in Charizard and Venusaur is, like, ridiculous. Like, it's so useful. Pairs super well with Gastrodon, pairs incredibly well with Zacian. It's just a super strong option. And, like, this is a huge jump. I think it was in B tier last time we rated it, maybe A. But yeah, it's really good. All right, next up, Cherum. Don't use this. Well, I guess they're kind of the same thing, I guess. But Cherum is, like, going to be, like, a solid D tier for me. Like, it has, like, maybe a little bit of utility, but, like, it's pretty bad. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably not... In your common Pokemon playthrough, you are probably not... Or, like, your common competitive use, you are probably not going to see this mon nor use it. For Cinderace is, like, theoretically kind of cool because it's, like, that fast Airstream, fast max Fireball. So for that reason, I'll put it in, like, maybe, like, low C because it can potentially snipe bulky Adamantization as well. But then you factor in all the other issues that it has, and then you kind of realize, like, it kind of struggles. I'm actually gonna put it in D tier, I think, because for that reason. Clefable, don't use this. Wait, I guess I should just put these in F, huh? Okay, yeah, I'll just put these in F. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. I guess Lileep can stay in the meme tier. Clefairy, I'm going to put in the D tier. It is redirection, but it's, like, literally the worst redirection you could probably have in the format, besides, like, obviously the really bad options. Not great. Colossal's a weird one. Colossal, I kind of want to put in, like, low B. The reason why I put it in low B is, like, Colossal will always have, like, those mind games, the mind game potential with the archetype. The problem is it's literally limited to one restricted pair, Yveltal Zacian. And it's not even that great, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of average at best. So, I think this is a fair placement to leave Colossal out for now. Then we have a normal cold. Don't do that. Caballion is kind of cool. Caballion basically does nothing. But, you know, it does have a cool beard. It does have some cool horns. Comfey, maybe D tier because of the triage healing, but I don't really see it being that great. I can't put Bisharp over these guys. Hold on. I need to put, like, Clefairy over here and, like, Comfey over here to, like, balance this out. Let me fix this real quick. Alright, Lugia is definitely better. Butterfree's probably better here. Arkanine maybe. Chandelure. Aerodactyl. Bisharp. Yeah. This is, like, a pretty reasonable B tier. Kinkeldor is just F tier. It's just not good right now. Zacian exists. There are just other better attackers. Corviknight as well is, like, one of those, like, unfortunate, what's it called? Unfortunate Pokemon. Really got boned by their G-Max. It actually does nothing for it. But normal Corviknight 2 is just not great in the format because Zacian exists, better Steel type. And on top of that, like, Sun is everywhere, Rain is everywhere. It's just completely... There's just, like, power level's way too high for it to even, like, have a chance of flourishing. Cordilli... yeah, don't use this Pokemon. Cresselia, I'm going to put in the D tier only because I genuinely feel like this thing might have, like, some kind of niche. But, like, it's not really that great. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably not really going to be any time you're really going to see it get used. I'm actually going to bump Clefairy and Cresselia up to C tier because I feel like that's more reasonable for them. Crobat, I'm going to put in the D tier as well. Like, Inner Focus, like, fast Tailwind's, like, kind of cute. But, like, then you realize it has a lot of other problems. Similar situation to Aerodactyl, very linear. Galarian Darmanitan, I'm going to leave in the D tier as well. It ended up having a high placement at Liverpool. I think it got top 4, but I think that was more so a product of like the Type R offense team being like super strong. And then Darmanitan just being like that coincidental niche that filled it. But like on most teams, it's not really going to provide too much. Okay. Diggersby, he fell off. Dracovish, I feel like Dracovish is like a D tier mon, like similar to Darmanitan in terms of like the niche it fills. Same with Dracozold, actually. I'd probably equate them mostly to the same thing. Dragalge, unfortunately F tier. You're just outclassed by like all the other dragons. Dragapult's actually really interesting. I actually feel like Dragapult's pretty underexplored in this format. I kind of want to put in like B tier because I feel like it actually has like some utility. The main issue that Dragapult encounters really is just that like there are better dragons in the format in terms of legendaries. And then when you go down and you look at it, like it's kind of tough to run in the Life Orb position because of the amount of Zacian in the format. But I feel like if you find a good use for this thing, it could actually be like kind of viable. Dragonite's like F. It's just not really that great, so I don't really see it being too useful. Duraludon, same boat. Or actually, Duraludon's probably an F tier. It's just not a good Pokemon. By the way, the F tiers aren't ordered at all. I don't really care about ordering these mons because they're not really that relevant. Dusclops I'm going to put in the B tier. It's a better trick. Like, I would say it's a better Trick Room setter than Bronzong, but it literally only works on, like, one archetype, which is Palkia and, what is it, Palkia Calyrex Ice right now. That being said, it's, like, fine enough. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of does its job. It's bulky Eviolite. I'd say P2 is probably the best of the setters, but, like, yeah, it's definitely, like, something, you know? So next up is Rayquaza. Rayquaza's just painfully average at best. Like, it ended up getting some top cuts early in the format, but after that it just completely fell off with like the high use of Zacian. I would probably put this thing in like the D tier. No, it's not as bad as like Darmanitan though. It's better, like it's better than Ho-Oh. So I'll put it above Ho-Oh, but it's really not that great. You know what I mean? Am I really gonna put Ho-Oh over Dracozold and Dracovish though? Yeah, probably. Alright, Durant is not good at the moment, but it's like a D tier mon, I'd say. It's not deserving of the F tier. Like, the max is actually kind of strong. The problem is, like, how do you implement that? Same with the Scavalier. I feel like a Scavalier is, like, kind of a cool Pokemon and, like, could be used in Trick Room, but it's just so awkward implementing it into a team. That being said, I do think it's a really cool idea that, like, could potentially be good. So Entei is actually something I think is pretty underlooked. So I kind of want to put in like high C or low B. The reason why I want to put in low B, like think about how much Zacian is in the format and think about how popular Sun is. Entei takes advantage of the Sun, pressures Zacian, has Stone Edge to pressure Charizard. Obviously Charizard runs Chardy, but you can like kind of build around that. You know what I mean? And on top of that too, like with how much Zacian there is, like Entei has some decent use. I feel like Entei is one of those Pokemon that are just like a little underlooked right now because your fire type slots usually gonna be like Charizard, Incineroar, some other fire type with like a higher damage output. Espeon, I don't know why you'd use that. Excadrill unfortunately has succumbed to the F tier. Maybe it's like a D tier mon. Like, no, it's an F tier. Ferrothorn. Alright, so Ferrothorn's an interesting one. Ferrothorn I want to put in like the B tier. It's like kind of solid against Palkia Calyrex Ice. It has some use into like other Kyogre archetypes. That being said, it can like be really passive sometimes. It can kind of like be worse than Kartana in certain situations. So like I'd say B is pretty fair for it, right? Garchomp, unfortunately, I have to put my boy in the D tier. He's not as bad as these guys, but I don't really see Garchomp getting too much use out of it. Yeah, it's unfortunately just really outclassed right now. And Zacian being everywhere doesn't help. And Kyogre. Gastrodon is going to be in the A tier, I'd say. Gastrodon's a really, really good. I've kind of said that's not pink Gastrodon, by the way. Gastrodon's a really, really good support mon in this format. It's really popular in a bunch of compositions. Calyrex Shadow Balance compositions. Kyogre, or not Kyogre, sorry. Groudon, like, Sun team right now. And, like, it's even good on the Evoltalization team. So, like, Gastrodon has a lot of use. It's actually a really good Pokemon. So, Definitely something I expect to continue to see succeeding. Meme tier, Gengar's, yeah, it's just F tier. It's just not great right now. Gigalith, just not good right now, unfortunately. Same with Calyrex Ice, just use the better form. G-Max Grim, you're never maxing it. Guzzlord is also down here as well. Alright, Gothitelle an interesting one. I'm gonna put in a D tier, which might be, like, unpopular for some people, but, like, every time I use it, it on paper, theoretically, Shadow Tag's really good. Then you realize, like, Dynamax ruins Fake Out, and then you have a passive slot on your team that does nothing the whole time, which is, like, really sad. Now, Grimstar, on the other hand, A tier, easy, dude. This Pokemon has the most splashable thing, like, moveset ever. With screens, like, I actually would even consider putting in S. That's how splashable I think it is on, like, a ton of teams. It's such a good mon, dude. It's, like, actually crazy how much screens, like, does for the teams that, like to use it. It's, like, a crazy Pokemon. You can even run it, like, offensive Fake Out, or, like, by offensive, I mean, like, Fake Tears, Fake Out, with Sash, and, like, it has other sets, like, Babiri, that gets some use. Like, you can do so much with this mon. It's crazy how flexible it is. Gyarados, I'm gonna put in the C tier. I mean, theoretically, right, like, it matches up well into Sun, right? Like, and what I mean by matches up well, I'm saying more so, like, typing wise, but then the nuances of it come into play of, like, Charizard can just airstream you and, like, annihilate you. However, I also think it matches up decently into Kyogre teams as well, so it's, like, kind of worth, like, noting, but not really taking, like, that serious, you know. Hatterene, don't use the normal form, that one's, that's not the play. G-Max Hatterene, I think it goes in D tier. Like, you shouldn't really... Anything in D tier, I don't really recommend using either. Like, and C is like, you need a really good case to use any of these Pokemon. You know what I mean? Alright, next up, Heatran. Okay, Heatran, I really like Heatran just as a Pokemon, but and I think it actually, like, does kind of destroy Sun if you get rid of the Groudon and the Gastro, but that's a tall order. Because you have to really think about it. Like, how are you going to get rid of the Groudon efficiently enough most of the time when it's like Assault Vest sitting there eating hits? You know what I mean? So, even though Heatran theoretically walls the rest of Sun, it kind of has some issues. However, I do think Trick Room Heatran does have some potential, so I'm going to leave it up there. Hippowdon, don't use this. Hitmontop, I actually think is underlooked at right now. I actually feel like Hitmontop could maybe do something on a certain archetype. I can't put my finger on exactly what archetype it would do something on. I feel like it actually might be a really good enabler on teams that can't use Incineroar because they need, like, another fire type, for example. So, I feel like it's a Pokemon worth keeping an eye on. That is what I will say. Or, like, might be worth implementing on a team or two. Hydreigon I'm also going to put in C because I feel like its ability to snipe, like, Calyrex Shadow and, like, now that Palkia Calyrex Ice is really viable, could be relevant. The problem is, like, its weakness is Zacian. I'm going to move on Goth up to C because I feel like since these are Pokemon that, like, you could maybe use in certain situations, like, that's more fair. Alright, well, next up is gonna be Dialga. Dialga, I'm gonna put in like I'm gonna put in B tier. It's like a B tier restricted. Like, it's not really, like, amazing, but, like, it has some potential in terms of, like, being super bulky. You can go for max, get a bunch of damage off. There's a lot you could do there, you know? So, I feel like it at least gives it a place in a B tier. You get Strong Max, Steel Spike, Blizzard, like, Rockfall. You get so much coverage off of this mon. So, like, I kind of get it. It's fine. Alright. Are you guys ready for the speed run in F tier? Alright. Meme tier. F tier. F tier. F tier. F tier. F tier. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm speed running the F tier real quick. Moltres is like D, I think. I actually don't think it deserves the F tier, but, like, it's like D-ish. Because, like, the thing is like, yeah, it's a dark type, but, like, at this point, like, you don't have an excuse for, like, not using it. You could be like, oh yeah, Moltres is like Yveltal, but, like, it's not really not, you know what I mean? Like, it's actually not the same thing at all. Alright, anything else here that is worth immediately throwing into F? Oh yeah. F, 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 F. Don't use this. Sorry guys, I'm trying to thin this list out quick so we don't spend a lot of time on unnecessary Pokemon. Alright, anything else here? Probably not great. Bad. Not good. None of the weather setters besides the Kyogre stuff are good for the most part, to be honest. I guess Politoed gets the D tier honorable mention because like it's not the worst, right? Where's okay, yeah, anyways. So now we can go back onto doing the what's it called? Like talking through the mon. So Palkia is next. Palkia is really good. I actually think it is an A tier Pokemon. However, I think right now it is not giving that impression because people don't know how to use it. Or people aren't using it the exact way it's supposed to be used. I think when people find the correct use for this Pokemon, it will be really good. Also, I'm putting Dialga over these two. I also think that when it comes to, you know, like ordering like what's more useful, Grimstar is like definitely at the upper echelon. I'd even consider putting Grimstar on C, or S tier, I mean. Because I think it's so splashable on so many teams, right? But I'll keep it like down here, top of A, right? I'll put it next to Zard because they're very situational, like around certain conditions. Like Palkia only really works with like Calyrex Ice or like Zacian. And Charizard only really works with Sun, right? So I think that's fair. Whereas like these Pokemon are like a little more generally splashable. Giratina is just, it's not good. It gets D because it's a restricted, but that's the only reason why. Reshiram is really interesting. I'm going to put in the C tier. Unfortunately with Reshiram, I just feel like it's really outclassed right now. And because of all the ground type coverage, especially these double ground cores going around, it just like gives it so much trouble. And like, yeah, it's just like, it's really outpaced. And like, at that point, if you're going for like damage, why wouldn't you just use Charizard and then a Zacian, you know? Zekrom is like a C tier for sure. It's like a average dragon. I put it like bottom of C though. Like it can wall Kyogre, but then it plays versus Groudon. It's very sad. It theoretically does really well into Yveltal as well, but then you kind of got to factor in everything else. You know, it's just not the best Pokemon. Kyurem White, I'm going to put in the low B tier just because I feel like it has a bit more viability than all the other restricteds that we listed down here. And also to, I mean, you have like Imprison stuff maybe. Nah, I'm going to put down here. I feel like, but like, this makes me want to lower Rayquaza and like Ho-Oh a little bit because they're also pretty bad. Okay, we're going to lower this and reorganize a little bit. Hitmontop's definitely worse than these guys though. So is Hydreigon. Heatran's probably here too. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty reasonable, right? Obviously, they're not perfectly ordered. This is going to be a long video, by the way. But, like, yeah, no, they're not, like, perfectly ordered, obviously. All right, next up, a Kyurem Black. Oh, this thing's, like, just so bad. Yeah, I just put it in F. Like, it's just not good. The problem with Kyurem Black is, like, you literally just should use Kyurem White instead. There's no benefit to using Kyurem Black. All right, Yveltal's next. So Yveltal for me was like a A tier for a while, but now I feel like it's fallen into like low A tier, like high B. The main issue with Yveltal right now is when there are a lot of things in the format that doesn't necessarily match up well into, it can kind of struggle. However, I think that it does deserve low A because I do think it has some current potential in the format. Just people haven't found the right utilization for it yet. You saw even I strayed away from it and used a different composition, but it has like won some tournaments, and on top of that too, like I think it does have still potential in the format. Normal Zygarde, just don't use that. So Zygarde complete form is just like I'd say it's like, it's a meme. Like literally, I don't think it's strong enough to like ever justify itself being used in like competitive scenario. Just because it's so outclassed damage-wise, and, like, there's just so much you can do to shut down its setup. Solgaleo, I'm actually going to put in the B tier. I actually think this Pokemon's pretty decent. People, like, shit on it because you have to max. I said a bad word. And obviously, you guys are usually adults here, but, like, I try to keep it friendly for YouTube. But, yeah. For Solgaleo in particular, it maxes like pretty much frequently, right? It's always like maxing a lot of the time. And basically the main thing to keep in mind with that, right, is like it does create a weakness where like you do have to max it most of the time. However, you do get the benefit of like a really strong max Steel Spike, not being able to be intimidated. I would say it's a very strong Dynamax candidate. So Lunala is a weird one because I've seen it around, but I haven't been like the most impressed by it. However, it's had a couple decent placements. So I'd probably put like high C. Not like I don't like, yeah, I think it's like comparable to Kyurem White in terms of like how often they should be used. You know what I mean? Like generally like a super niche pick, but like maybe it'll work on like a team or two. Like it does get like the bulky Trick Room. And then you go to like Duskmane Necrozma. Even though this Pokemon ended up getting top 8, I'm really unconvinced about it. I'm gonna put in like the C tier, like maybe next maybe above Zekrom, but like yeah, it's not the best. Because you just get Intimidate spammed. Normal Necrozma, you shouldn't be using this. This is just like really bad because you're just weak to Calyrex Astral Barrage. Lunala is just better as a Pokemon, and like its feature, granted it's slower, but like it's very hard to capitalize off of. Alright, Landorus I is gonna go in the C tier. You maybe have some justification for using it because it outspeeds Charizard, but then you kind of realize it's bad with everything else. The one thing is nice that it doesn't give Intimidate, but like as a max candidate, it's really poor, so like I'm actually gonna put it like here. Yeah, I probably put like around this area. Then we have Zacian. Alright, man. Like, do I even need to say anything about this Pokemon? Like, Zacian's actually just a ridiculous Pokemon. Like, this thing's so strong. Literally does so much in this format. It's easily the most splashable Pokemon. You can put this Pokemon on any team, and even if the team doesn't want it, it'll still probably be decent. Like, that's how busted it is. Right? So, it's just, yeah, it's just, like, really crazy, honestly. Like, it is... Excuse me. It is an incredible Pokemon as a whole. It is, like, really insane. So, that is all I will say about it. Alright, let's see. Going down here. Next up is going to be Incineroar. Now, Incineroar is probably the most splashable basic Pokemon in the game. There's a reason it is on, like, 90% of teams, right? This Pokemon is so splashable, I'm actually going to put it right behind Zacian. I think this Pokemon is the second best Pokemon in the game, literally just because of how much it can be used on every single team. So it is a step above because it just literally works with like almost any team. And Incineroar is just crazy. Parting Shot, Fake Out, everything. Indeedee, for me, has actually really rised up as one of the better forms of redirection in this format. I'm actually going to put an A. I'm contemplating whether I want it above or behind Amungus. The reason why it's so good is just because it stops Grimstar from doing shenanigans with like Scary Face. They could use it to like enable your offensive stuff. Like for example, like when you're using like Palkia Calyrex, you can use it to get an easy setup. Then you have Amungus in the back with another like, you know, Spore and like more redirection, you know. So it gets Helping Hand, it gets Safeguard. Oh my god, excuse me. Yeah, it has a lot of options. It's crazy. It's just a really strong redirector. Kartana is weird. I would probably put it in like B, low B. I think it's like an average Pokemon. It like just genuinely is just okay. Like it works for what it needs to do to enable Kyogre teams, but like there are a lot of fundamental weaknesses it has, especially when it's faced with Incineroar and Zacian, right? It can make it really difficult to use. Alright, Latios goes in the F tier. Maybe Latios goes in the A tier. So Lapras for me is like a C tier Pokemon. Like, yeah, maybe you can use Lapras, but it's just like super underwhelming. Like, its damage output's really low. And like into the current metagame, it's like really outclassed by Charizard, and it can just get like wildfired and get KO'd. Zamazenta is just a D tier as well. It gets like coaching, but like it's just not useful, you know? It's like the Lugia problem. Like, if it had Body Press, I feel like it could at least be like a C tier, but like, yeah, it's just like really poor. Eternatus, kind of the same boat. You know, they're all in the same areas. Like, nothing compares to Zacian as a Pokemon, honestly, as a restricted from Gen 8, at least. Besides, like, maybe Calyrex Shadow, Calyrex Ice. Calyrex Ice is a really interesting one. I'd probably put Calyrex Ice in, like... probably put Calyrex Ice in like the B tier. It like maybe is a no B tier because it only works on one composition, but it works really well with it. Like it works really well with Palkia, so okay, I think it deserves that spot. Calyrex Shadow, I'm gonna put in A tier. I think it's like a pretty splashable, or not splashable, but like it has a lot of utility. It's kind of in that same general ballpark with these other restricteds. The only reason why I have basic Pokemon over the restricteds is because it's not just power level, it's also like utility, like how much they can be used on the team, you know, and like for these are all really strong damage dealers. Calyrex is actually a utility, so I'm gonna put it over there. But, you know, actually I'm putting Charizard over this, but yeah. Like, Calyrex, like, is really good utility, but it really only has, like, one useful set. It can be offensive specs on, like, the Calyrex Shadow Ogre teams, but I think it is a bit limiting for it, and, like, its support set's, like, really nasty in this format. Kingdra's really interesting. It's kind of arisen as, like, a support option for Kyogre. I'm going to put it in the B tier because I feel like it actually has some potential. You can go for, like, fast Icy Winds, Airstream, stuff like that. It's kind of cool. That's all I have to really say about it. Landorus is like a really solid Pokemon. I'm going to put it in the A tier. I know a lot of people are like, you know, it's not as good this format. I just think it's like people haven't found the right team to use it with besides like Evoltalization. I think this Pokemon has a lot of potential, especially in DD Landorus as well. Like, is really strong. So I would expect to see that archetype pop up. Ludicolo. Excuse me. Ludicolo, Mandibuzz. I'm just going to put all the ones I know for sure are this tier. Shout out Max D's. This gets a C tier placement for me. Let's see. Or Max Simon, as you guys might have seen in a Salt Lake City broadcast. Alright, so Raichu, I'm just grabbing the ones that I find more interesting out of the bunch. Raichu's a decent support mon. I think it's a B tier because there are a decent amount of electric types that can have some viability, specifically Regieleki and Thundurus. And those Pokemon are, like, definitely very frequent. So, like, I definitely think they deserve to, like, be respected. So, yeah. So, Xerneas is, like, an interesting restricted. I actually don't think it's as bad as I originally said, but I think it's, like, kind of in the realm with, like, Lunala and Kyurem and Reshiram. Like, they're very situational restricteds. Hyper Beam Xerneas, so you can get Max Strike after Geomancy next to Zacian is kind of cool, and like you have Imprisoned Zacian, but it's very linear, right? So it really only has one build. Mamoswine's kind of a cool option. Mamoswine's always like that Pokemon where you're like, oh yeah, this checks like a ton of Pokemon in the format, and then you like actually play it and you're like, okay, maybe this is as easy to use as I thought it was, you know? So like that would probably be like what I would say. I think that that's generally like a fair place to put it, you know? But yeah, I would say that's pretty fair for, where it's supposed to be. Metagross is like a D tier for me. Like, it's not bad enough to be like F, but like you probably won't use it, you know? Mienshao as well. I mean, you get coaching, but like there's just so many better options. Milotic 2 is probably in the same boat. I'm not really spending too much time talking about the ones that like aren't important. Mimikyu is like kind of decent. I could say being in C tier. Like, it makes sense, right? Because you can, like, get the Guaranteed Trick Room. I think, like, Guaranteed Trick Room is kind of a nice tool. It can be utilized in some teams. So I'll leave it at C. Naganadel is just F. Nihilego F. Oranguru is, like, maybe gimmicky Trick Room setter, but it, like, can do something. So I think I'll leave that over there. Oh, over there. I think that's fair. Persian's actually a really cool support mon that I think is super underlooked. I'm going to put it in low B tier because I actually feel like fast fake out, fast foul play, fast icy winds, like actually a really cool tool to utilize. Pheromosa is going to go in like the D tier for me. Like it like maybe has speed swap stuff, but that's literally the only thing it does. It's just really bad besides that. PZ isn't that impressive. Now, Porygon 2 is a really, really good support mon. However, I think that it definitely, like, needs some work as a whole to, like, improve, right? The problem with Porygon 2 is, like, it ends up getting trapped into, like, the Foul Play, Eerie Impulse, like, Trick Room Recover set a lot of the time. But I do think it has other uses than that. I actually probably put it in, like, B tier. But, like, it is kind of, like, a neat Pokemon for, like, Trick Room. I'd say it's arguably the best Trick Room setter out of the bunch. Besides, like, the Restricteds. Primarina is going to go in like the, yeah, probably goes in D tier. Raikou is F. Regice F. Reggie Drago I've seen used on a few teams, and like while the fast like Dragon Water Spout is like kind of cool, then you have to factor in that like Zacian's the most popular mon in the format, so kind of makes it a bit tricky. I'd probably put in like D tier at best. So Regieleki is a really interesting one. I think Regieleki deserves like the high B or like low A tier. I think Regieleki is actually a really solid Pokemon. The main problem that it has is it gets trapped into like 2 or 3 roles, which is basically like strong maxer on the physical end, strong maxer on the special end, or like support set with like webs and screech. So, you know, you have a couple different options there, but for the most part, right, Regieleki is the fastest electric type in the format, which does give it some viability, which I think is worth mentioning. Regigigas Weezing, I'm going to say, is like a C tier strategy, probably. I'm going to put like Weezing there. I actually think Weezing is only good when it's used next to Regigigas. I don't think it is good in any other scenario. So I actually wouldn't recommend using Weezing unless you're using Regigigas with it. I think Weezing and Kyogres are actually really bad because like it doesn't even force like a really good matchup in the sun. All right, let's see. Reggie Rock, not great. Zacian exists. Registeel, maybe D tier like setup, but it's just not so great. Reuniclus, F tier, F tier, F tier. Yeah, so I'm going to put Gmax Rillaboom meme tier because technically you'd use Gmax. But I would say Rillaboom's actually a pretty splashable Pokemon. I'd probably be putting it like next to Regieleki on the tier. Like, it's one of the lower used mons, but like or like lower usage like A tier mons, but I think like it actually does a really good job of like pinning Gastrodon, pinning Kyogre, stuff like that. Don't use this. Don't use this. Okay. Rotom Heat, I would probably put in like the B tier. I feel like it's actually like decent for like doing well into like Thunderous Zacian, but then you kind of have to factor in everything else it plays versus I'd say Rotom Heat's like average, right? Like it kind of gets its job done, but like it's not the best. Kind of similar to Kingdra with Kyogre. Typically Rotom Heat will pair really well with Zacian and Yveltal, so. Then we have Rotom Wash next. I'd probably say Rotom Wash is like a solid like C. You know, it like has a little bit of viability, but like it's not really going to be used that much, so I probably wouldn't recommend it. Not so great. Sableye is really interesting. Sableye actually is like kind of a cool prankster user in my opinion, but I do think it makes up like high C just because of how linear it is and like how it basically only quashes and does stuff like that, so not the best. Salamence goes there. Synaconda is just not good. Scizor is not good. Don't use Scrafty. Because why would you use Scrafty when you can use anything else, like using Incineroar? Okay. Wow, we are just like sending a bunch of Pokemon to Shadow Realm right now. Okay. Salazzle is like D tier because it does have like fast fake out, but like it is kind of held back by like its speed tier a little bit. Seismitoad, I'm gonna say, originally I would have put this in B tier because of how much is being used with Ogre, but I think it's actually way worse now, so I'm gonna put it in like C tier. It's like an average Pokemon at best, probably. It's like okay, you know. Then we have Shedinja. So Shedinja recently has been performing well. I'm actually gonna put Shedinja in the B tier. I actually think the pressure it forces with itself in team preview, even if you don't use it, is crazy. Because like they always have to respect the fact that you could maybe just like Shedinja them. So they have to like bring something to respect it, right? And that's really powerful in team preview. Spectre for me is like a C tier Pokemon. Like it is fast and like theoretically you get like the fast sash Will-O-Wisp without like having to use up a restricted slot. But like in practice it's a little bit trickier than that. C tier I'd probably leave Stack Attack as well. Stack Attack is like strong offensive Trickermon, but the problem is like Zacian's everywhere, and then you think about like Gastrodon, ground types, it's really difficult for it. Suicune would probably put in like the high C tier as well. I think it's like a decent support mon, but the problem is that like it's kind of outclassed by like a lot of other support options. This format also values damage a lot, which is kind of important to notice. Swampert, I'm also going to leave in the C tier. I just don't think it's really that phenomenal. It's just one of those gimmicky ground types. I'd actually probably put it lower in the C tier. I'd probably put it like somewhere over here. We have Talonflame. Talonflame's like fast Tailwind, so again, it's like another like C tier support mon, but like it's not really going to be used that much, and it's usually not that useful. I've only really seen it being used next to Calyrex Shadow Ogre, which like kind of makes sense for it, because you can go for Quick Guard as well. Poor Bulu. Finny is actually like a kind of cool mon. I'm going to put in the B tier. I actually think it's a really decent support mon on like the Cali Ice Palkia teams. And I actually think as well it can be used on like some other teams. We just haven't really found a good use for it yet. but it is kind of a cool Pokemon in general. Koko, to me, still has potential because I think it walls Yveltal very well, but then that means you need to be using compositions where you specifically need it for Yveltal, right? So, like, kind of makes it a little bit niche. So I'm going to put in, like, this high C tier probably, like, or low B tier. I'll probably put low B tier. Koko actually has a lot of potential. The damage it exerts is, like, crazy. Like, yeah, Regieleki does the same thing, but, like, sometimes you want Koko's extra bulk or typing for, like, stuff like Yveltal, for example, you know? Tapu Lele. So Tapu Lele is a really interesting one. It's probably gonna be like C tier for me, like just because I feel like with Tapu Lele, like yeah, you get the psychic terrain, but it's just like Zacian's everywhere. You're super outclassed. Calyrex Shadows in the format. You're not really dealing as much with your fairy type damage. It's probably like low C. It's not really that useful. Then we have Terrakion. So Terrakion is fine sitting in D tier probably. You're not really gonna use it too often. Thundurus. So Thundurus to me is, or Thundurus Darien for to be specific, right? To me is like something that like its speed tier is kind of cute because like it just creeps Zard, but like then you put it in practice, it's not really that great. I'd probably put in like a D tier. Thundurus I though, or the original form Thundurus, this thing's crazy, dude. I could see this thing like I probably put it like right behind Charizard in terms of like viability, just because I actually probably put it behind Landorus. Or, like, maybe, like, right next to Landorus. Basically, like, Thundurus has two uses. It can be Prankster or it can be Defiant, which is already a mind game for your opponent. On top of that, both sets are good, and they both work with a lot of different teams. So, I actually think that Thundurus is, like, a really good mon in this format. Probably the best electric type in the format, honestly. If I had to, like, pick one. Speaking of electric types, Togedemaru, you're probably going to go into D tier, unfortunately. Togekiss. Togekiss actually has, like, some decent redirection options. So, like, I'm going to put in, like, C tier. The problem is that, like, Zacian's everywhere. And on top of that, like, it's just not the best redirection option. Like, for example, Indeedee's, like, immune to Calyrex Shadow. Amungus just has that extra spore pressure. So, Torkoal is, like, a C tier mon as well, I think, because it can actually maybe get some stuff done. You know, it can put on a bit of pressure with, like, Yawns, Burning Jealousies. I'm going to put low B, actually. I feel like it has some potential as, like, its own setter on, like, teams that don't have, Groudon, right? Don't use Tornadus, Therian for him. Normal Tornadus, though, I'd probably put in, like, the high B tier, because I think Tornadus is really good at, like, enabling certain Kyogre teams. Problem is it can be really linear, right, which can kind of punish it pretty hard. I'm actually going to reorganize this list a little bit as well, by the way. Rotom Heat's probably better than Holt and Kingdra. This is fine. Raichu's probably a little bit better. Here, Bronzong. Shed is probably like on the higher tier. Probably like around here. Sorry, I'm just like reorganizing the list real quickly. Ferrothorn. Coco. Probably here. Alright, that seems pretty reasonable. I'd actually probably put Klops too, like, pretty high. Maybe, like, this area. But yeah, basically, like, the main thing to keep in mind, right, is, like, basically in terms of, like, the best electric types in the format, if we were to use this tier list as a judge, it'd be, like, Thundurus, Regieleki, and then, like, Raichu or Coco, right, in terms of, like, use. But, like, yeah, you can kind of see that this list is probably what you would have expected for the most part, you know. Toxicroak, I would say, is just F. Serena, maybe D, because you can, like, block Fake Out or, like, Grassy Glide on your Ogre. Poor Tyranitar, man. It just got bodied by these changes. Umbreon's actually kind of a cool mon. I feel like it's a C tier mon. Like, it can do, like, a couple things. It can be really bulky, but the problem then you encounter is, like, the way it's used requires you to play, like, really defensive with it, but this format's super aggressive, and, like, into opposing stun, it doesn't necessarily gain you any advantage. Urshifu Dark to me is, like, actually, like, an A-tier Pokemon. I know we haven't really been using the Urshis, like, too much recently. I'll probably put, like, Urshifu Water in, like, B-tier, but, like, I think Urshifu Dark is actually really crazy. I just think people haven't really been using it enough. I think it's actually, like, a really strong mon. So, I would expect Urshifu Dark to have some more appearances, especially in Calyrex teams. F-tier, F-tier. Venusaur's probably the last relevant. Actually, no, the Zapdos is actually last, so that's going to be pretty relevant. Venusaur's an interesting one. Venusaur is like Fast Leaf Powder and like G-Max Vine Lash, which is kind of cool. So I'd probably end up putting it like in the B tier if I had to say. I think B is like probably pretty reasonable for it, you know. Yeah, I'd say B. I think B makes a lot of sense because you get the fast Sleep Powder, but you get Vine Lash, but it is a little bit outclassed in the current format, so I would probably put it like B tier, to be fair. F. Alright. Volcarona to me is like a C tier as well. Like, yeah, maybe you have like that Rage Powder, but then you realize Max Airstream's everywhere. You could do like Copa Berry maybe and like Redirect Zacian, which is kind of cool. But like, there's just a lot at play against it, so I wouldn't really see it being too great. Persian's cool, but I also think like Weavile might be a bit better because like the main successful Persian build so far has been Focus Sash Persian with Icy Wind, Foul Play, Fake Out, and what was the last one? Icy Wind, Foul Play, Fake Out, Fake Tears. So like, and like Weavile has the same kit, so it's like better in that regard, but Persian also has other things it can run. Whimsicott is like one of the best support mons in the format. Whimsicott's an easy A. It's so splashable in like these offensive teams, and you could do a lot with it. And then on top of that, you get like Helping Hand. You know, you can go for like Eject Button Trick, stuff like that. So it could just do a lot there. Xurkitree, unfortunately, it's not so great. I don't feel bad for that one. Finally, Zapdos. Zapdos, I think, is like crazy good. It's definitely an A tier mon. It's like one of those Pokemon that's like really strong with abusing Dynamax, and it gets like the Safety Goggles Eerie Impulse set. So, like, kind of similar to Thunder, so you can really mess your opponents up by, like, clicking Eerie Impulse instead of clicking, like, you know, a max move, right? And that's kind of, like, a cool tool to have. And, like, Zapdos in general is just, like, really strong typing, and static to, like, mess up Zacian's, like, really nice as well. So, yeah, this is our updated full Series 11 tier, or Series 12 tier list, sorry. And if you guys would like to see a tier list with just the restricteds, make sure to let me know. But this is probably where I would rate every Pokemon as of now, April 2nd. But yeah, make sure to let me know how you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys would like to see more tier list videos like this, and what other kinds of videos you guys would like to see. And let me know in the comments if you disagreed with any of the choices that I made. Once again, guys, thank you so much for all support. Incredibly appreciate it. See you guys on the next video. Peace.